that again is very, very common, and I wanted to address because I think a lot of guys don't see anything wrong with it, but I wanted to sort of explain why I do see something wrong with it. Hello lads, hope you're well. Today I wanted to talk about unhealthy attitudes in relationships or around dating that a lot of men have. This came up because I went to a party on Saturday. It was a pool party at just a friend's house. It was meant to be a guy's day out sort of thing, but one of the guys brought his girlfriend, which, yep, it's a decision that people make, and there was two things that I saw sort of play out at this party that I wanted to talk about today, and because I think it's things that a lot of guys do, mistakes that I've certainly made in my life, and yeah, something that a lot of people do maybe when they're sort of a younger man, earlier in their dating life. So the first thing I want to talk about is on the girlfriend side, for people that are actually in relationships. As I mentioned, so I think there was like, yeah, maybe like 7 or 8, 9 guys there, and literally one of them decided to bring their girlfriend. Ignoring the fact that that's an absolute cardinal sin, never ever bring your girlfriend on a boys' night out. It just doesn't ruin it, but it just, no one wins in that situation. It's no good for anyone. But anyway, ignoring that for a start, it was actually more the way they were while she was there, and this is sort of part of the reason why you don't do something like that, is because basically it was quite clear he felt very pressured to sort of spend the whole day with her. I do actually believe she knew a lot of the guys there. Out of pure coincidence, I actually knew her. I didn't know her boyfriend, but I knew her just from meeting her years and years back. We weren't close or anything like that, but I just knew who she was, so sort of I was sort of one of the only people there that she could actually have a chat with. But the whole day it was sort of pretty clear that the guy couldn't sort of go off and chat to the people that he wanted to chat to and everything like that, because he felt he had to sit with her the whole time. So it's sort of, in terms of a specific example, the reason I mentioned that I knew her is she's a really nice person. She's not a bad girlfriend from what I can see. She's not sort of super ridiculously demanding or stressy or anything like that. So that wasn't the case in this situation. So I knew that it was just him being how he is, rather than her getting in his ear about things. But like, there was a pool there, and he quite clearly wanted to get in the pool, and because she just had her lashes done, she didn't want to, because obviously when you get in a pool with like 10 guys, there's just going to be like loads of splashing, obviously. And he sort of just sat at the side of the pool, sort of trying to get her to come in, and she didn't want to. And that is just so unhealthy. If you're in a situation like that where you feel like you can't do your own thing because of your partner, and as I've mentioned, you shouldn't have brought it in the first place, but if this could be any situation where if you have something that you want to do, that you'll feel that you can't do because of the person you're dating, that's not right. That's not right at all. Obviously you want to have common interests and shared interests and whatever with the person you're dating, but the reality is no one gets on 100% on everything. So you have to have your own space and your own time alone. If that person not only either wants to do every single thing with you, or won't let you do what you want to do on your own without them, that's not a healthy thing that's going to last. It is completely unnatural, these weird couples that spend, in my opinion, that spend sort of every day together no matter what, and don't have their own thing. I think it can maybe last for a certain amount of time, but if you're talking about someone that you're going to be with for years and decades, that's just not a healthy way to live. You have to have your own thing that you want to do. And like I said, if you've got shared interests and there's things you do together, that's fine. But it was pretty clear that this guy wanted to get in the pool with all his mates. Obviously that's why he's come to the party, but then he couldn't really because she was there. And then eventually when he did sort of like coax her into the pool, obviously she got splashed, got her eyelashes wet, and then she was all upset, and then he had to go deal with that. So lesson one, do not bring your girlfriend to a boys' day or night out. And yeah, two, like, that's just not a healthy thing. If you're feeling like, oh, I've got to leave my mates now to go and look after her or whatever, like, that's just such an unhealthy way to be. And the reason I mentioned about her not being particularly stressy and everything like that is, in that situation, I don't actually think that was her fault. He shouldn't have brought her in the first place. But I think we all know girls where there's a completely reasonable situation, completely normal, you're just at a social occasion which the girlfriends are invited, and you have to keep leaving your mates because she's one of those girls where something's always wrong. If you're in that situation, that is really, really not good. That's, I'm not saying you necessarily just have to leave her, but you've got to start having those conversations where you go, look, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep ditching my mates. I can't keep just walking away and coming to look after you the whole time. Like, you're an adult. You've got to look after yourself to a certain amount. If you can't do that, then this just isn't going to work. Now, I'm no relationship expert. The next bit I'm going to talk about is the single guys there and the behaviour I observed, because this is much more sort of my comfort area. I haven't been in relationships, but they haven't lasted that long, and I've only had a couple of them. So, whereas for the majority of my 26 years, I've been single. And it was only at the end of the night, I wasn't sure that I was even going to have to make a bit about sort of the single side of things, but I saw something that again is very, very common, and I wanted to address, because I think a lot of guys don't see anything wrong with it, but I wanted to sort of explain why I do see something wrong with it. That is, there was two of the lads there. One of them was texted a girl, she had a mate, absolutely classic situation, completely fair enough. And since there was already a couple of girlfriends there, we were saying, cool, just invite them along, whatever, that's fine, no problem. These girls turned around and said, no, we don't want to come. At that time, in my opinion, what you should do is go, okay, cool, no worries, I'm with my mates now, I'll see you another time. Nah. These two boys were just climbing over themselves to get an Uber and go into Croydon and see them. And look, each their own. If that's what made them happy, that's what made them happy. My personal belief that if you're at the stage where you're ditching your friend, I think it was his birthday, it was either a birthday party, or even he's invited you around to his house. If you're ditching your friends to go and see girls that you haven't even met, just the hope something might happen, I can't get on board with that. That's such an unhealthy way to live. You know, I'm not, like, people might call it whatever they want. In my opinion, that's such an unhealthy attitude to have. Like, and the guy whose party it was, like, I sort of said to him, like, I can't believe you're alright with that. And he was like, I'm not really, but what can you do? Like, if they're going to go do it. And it is true, but I think a lot of guys don't realise the extent that women rule their lives. Like, be honest with yourself if you're watching it now. If you got that text when you were at a party, if you were at your mate's birthday party and you got a girl text you saying, oh, come see me instead, would you? Would you ditch your mate's birthday to go and see her? Because if the answer is yes, in my opinion, you really need to have a look at yourself. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because I think it goes beyond this. If you're the type of person, and it's, again, these are all mistakes that I've made. I'm only speaking to this from experience. I'm not saying this in a judgmental way, because I think this is the attitude that gets drummed into a lot of people, and it's considered sort of, we've all got that guy in the group who's just sort of the serial womanizer, and it's quite funny to be the guy that does everything, like, only turn up if there's girls there. But if you are someone who sort of, like, when you get invited to a party, the first thing you're doing is checking the guest list to see what girls there. When you walk into a party, the first thing you're doing is walking around, seeing what, and if there are no girls there, you're like, oh, this is a bit dead. Like, if that's the attitude you're going with, it's just, one, you're just going to not enjoy a lot of things, and two, like, with things like that, you've been invited to your mate's birthday. Like, don't be wrong, if you're going out one-on-one with a mate in London and you walk into a bar and there's absolutely no women there, and you're like, oh, should we just go to the one next door? Yeah, fair enough. That's fine. You're still with your mate. You're not ditching anyone. Because you never know who you're going to bump into. But if someone's invited you to their gathering, to their party, and you walk in, the only thing you've got to say is, oh, there's not really many girls here. Like, that's in my opinion, that's really not on. Another thing that I've, like, you can extend it further to this, like the amount of guys that will only do things in the hope that a woman's there. You get guys, I remember when I first turned up to my university specialises a lot in sort of nursing, primary school, midwifery and things like that. And I remember one of the first things that I learned was the university I go to is a 3-to-1, 3 girls to 1 guy ratio. And like there were guys who were genuinely like, yeah, I was like looking at other unis, but I heard that Christchurch was 3-to-1, so you chose to go to uni because they're, what, like, and there are, and I'm not, obviously that is an extreme example, but there are people who will pick their university because of the ratio of women. There are people who pick their university to try and maintain a long distance relationship, and sorry, it is rubbish. It is absolute rubbish. That is such an unhealthy, unreasonable way to do things. You have to do what you want to do, and who you bump into along the way, those are the people that are meant to be in your life. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I hope it didn't come across as too much of a rant. It's just, things like that do bother me because I've been on the other side of it and I know the damage it does, and I used to completely be one of those people that was like that. And it wasn't until when I went to uni with a girlfriend, and not with her, but I was with someone at the time, and when I could just go to socials and go out and not have to think about other girls, I actually suddenly realised how much more fun it is. And I'm not with that person anymore, but I've sort of kept that attitude that I just sort of, I go out and yeah, like I'll just see who's there. Like it didn't even think to cross my mind to say to the lad on Saturday, all right, you're not inviting. I think we all may have joked that it's a bit of a sausage fest, but it was a boys. That was the whole point. That was the whole point. It was sort of a catch up with the guys, and there were a lot of guys there that I hadn't seen possibly for 3 years since before the lockdowns. So it was for me, it was so good to catch up with them. The last thing I was thinking about was, who else is going to turn up girls wise. So yeah, that was why I decided to make this, just because it was some behaviour that I observed on Saturday. But look, I appreciate you guys who do stick around to the end. If you do find any of it useful, please do consider liking, subscribing. As always, comment any other thoughts or whatever you have below, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care, lads.